Hi, Arrow. I'm doing well. How are you?
Absolutely fantastic. I'm so proud of you as a poet because so much poetry and slam poetry is lost in history because people tend to run away from it. But boy, look at you go. Look at you go.
Well, I appreciate that, and I agree with you. I think oral storytelling can often be pushed to the side, but it's been fascinating to watch the ways that I can, maneuver literature and bring it with me.
Well, one of the things that I've learned as at being a poet and being a poet and everything like that is the fact that limericks and even poetry in the Sandinista War in Central America, poetry was used as the spoken language because you can say things in poetry that move the emotions.
Oh, yes, entirely. I mean, if we look back, it's only for the last 300 or 400 years that, the majority of civilization is literate, right? For such a long time, we had the griots in Western Africa, we had the troubadours in Europe. We've carried stories and poems and orally as ways to communicate with each other and to remember, to, keep history alive.
The to take that step though, because we have listeners that I call hider writers. They'll write the poetry, but then they hide it. They don't want anybody because they're so afraid of being judged and stuff. But it requires people like yourself, Elizabeth, to bring them forward.
I mean, Arrow, I think it's tough because I want everyone to write. I think that writing makes you empathetic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I want to share, right? Because there's some things that maybe you should keep to yourself. Like they're just, it's cathartic or maybe you processing. And so if you're a hider writer, which I am stealing that term, Arrow, I think it's okay if, there are certain pieces of writing that are just for you. However, if you write something and you think this really is something I've not heard, this would offer a new kind of thinking to the world. I do hope that you find the bravery to get it published or make a video of it or get it recorded because we do need those point of views and different kinds of writing we've not seen before.
To put the illustrations with them, I tap into this so easily, and the reason why is because the only way I could get my poetry out there was that I would paint on a canvas, and I would put my poetry on the canvas, and then people would come to the to the painting itself, and then they would pick up on the poetry. Is that the same type of experience that you had? It's like I'm going to use the pictures to invite, but then the message is going to be within the picture.
I mean, this is my first time doing an illustrated poem. I think in many ways I wish that I knew how to paint, and it's probably why my writing has so much imagery, because I see what I want to express, but I've only ever had language as a way to communicate what I'm trying to say. So this new, book that I have coming out that has these illustrations has shown me so much about what I've been trying to say, and the way that the images really can bring something to life. I'm hoping that, folks who are more interested in the illustrations will find the messages. I think it's a beautiful marriage between language and visual art.
Well, you're so right about that because the writer needs a voice. I've always believed that. I've been in radio for 43 years because the writer in me found a stage, and you're doing that as well as a poet and as a writer.
Oh, entirely. I mean, I'm so thankful that even as a young person, when I was really, really little, that I believed in myself enough to write, and I believed in myself enough to share my work with, my neighborhood, with the guys, with the rappers on the corner who, when I was 8 years old, would call me the little shorty hip hop artist, right? And that's my first workshop, right? Were those dudes on the corner, and was able to share it in high school and at poetry slams, that it offered me so much confidence when I was so insecure. I could take 3 minutes on a stage and own my own body and have agency. I mean, there's not enough that I could say about the kind of power you can feel as a teenager to own your own words.
As a creative spirit and somebody who brings stories forward by way of poetry, how did you get through the mess that we have with people that have totally different interpretations? Or do you just say, if that's what you feel this is about, then it's for you to hold?
I mean, Arrow, to be very honest, I used to be a teacher, right? I was an eighth grade English teacher, and so I try to teach students to do close reading. Not just what your interpretation is, although that has validity, but what are the actual words on the page? My writing, I think, is very specific, and I try to be very precise with my language. And I also know that once I put something out into the world, it's no longer mine.
That's right.
And so people come up with interpretations. I can only say, well, can you provide textual evidence, right? There's a teacher again. But oftentimes people, will find what they're going to find. And if, you're not doing a close reading, you might find something that I didn't mean to get across. And if you are doing a close reading, you might be able to find things that I was, kind of secretly weaving through, and you're going to find those little Easter eggs. And so for me, I don't really bother myself with what a poem does or a piece does once.
How do you talk with or share the journey with somebody who's into spoken word? Because slam poetry to me is also spoken word just as much as rap music is spoken word.
Oh, I completely agree. I mean, I think they're all oral poetry. They're just different categories within oral poetry, right? But to me, hip hop was the first place where I came from, and I knew that was poetry. And then I had spoken word and participated in poetry slams, and that's poetry. And I think what I'm doing now, right, is also poetry. So I don't know that these distinctions, to me, they all fall under the same umbrella.
Well, congratulations on Inheritance, a Visual Poem. You got to come back to the show anytime in the future, Elizabeth. The door is always going to be open for you.
I appreciate it so much, Arrow. I had a wonderful time. Thank you for having me.
You be brilliant today, okay?
Yes, you as well.
Thank you.